Hi, everybody who keeps arriving. Nice to see y'all. So me and Jane will be presenting today. If you've got any questions, stick your hand up or pop it in the chat. And if you could pop all your email addresses in the chat, if that's all right, just so that I can send some evaluation forms out afterwards, that'd be fab. Thank you.
Give people a couple of minutes to jump on
Yeah.
the list. Right, it's 12 o'clock. Do you want to start?
Well, do you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Lovely stuff. I can't see anybody now, so I'll see if I can get anybody on. I'll just drop you all down like that. Okay, that's brilliant. So welcome, first one for 2025. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Just a reminder, so I'm Sally Smith. I'm one of the perinatal and infant mental health clinical leads in 0 to 19. And we've also got Jane with us today, who is also giving us a wave, 0 to 19 clinical lead for perinatal and infant mental health. And we are the Band 7s that manage the parent and infant relationship team. So for those of you that have never kind of attended any of these sessions before, it's bite size. It lasts about an hour. Time at the end for questions, but if there's anything that you want to raise as we're going through, please pop your hand up or drop a message in the chat and we can kind of pick it apart at the end. These will all be recorded as well. They'll all be on the Wakefield Safeguarding Children's Board partnership that will get uploaded as soon as we possibly can, because I rely on somebody else to do that for me. But yeah, so thank you for today. Today is the first one, and we wanted to start off really kind of focusing us all in on the voice of the child and what do we mean by the voice of the child. So thank you for joining us, and let's look at that a bit closer together. Forward.
So hopefully by the end of today, you'll understand what we mean by the term infant mental health and what we mean by the voice of the child, and particularly the voice of the non-verbal infant, because what we do know is babies are really sophisticated in their communication, even to the point where when they have it, they will initiate a conversation and they will give space for the parent or the carer to respond. So it's a two-way thing that babies can initiate right from birth. So they're really sophisticated within their communication styles, and I think sometimes we may not know that, or we don't understand that or see it or know how to what to look for. So hopefully by the end of this bite-sized session, you'll know what we mean by that. And most of that is through this serve and return interactions, and we're going to go in that in a bit deeper. We're going to give some documentation suggestions about how you capture the voice of the child within your records or when you're communicating to other practitioners. And then we're going to just round up with a reminder of what the PAIR team is for anybody that doesn't know what we do, how to refer to us and what will happen once we receive that referral, useful resources and further training that we do, because obviously you're only getting a bite size today, and then we'll deal with questions at the end. So as Sally said, just put your questions into the chat and we'll look at them at the end. So next slide.
Microphone off mute. What do we mean by infant mental health? So I think we all have a different opinion and understanding of what infant mental health means. I suppose infant mental health developing the capacity of the child from birth to be able to experience, regulate, and express emotion, to form close interpersonal relationships and explore the environment and learn, all in the context of family, community, and mental health expectations for young children. Infant mental health is synonymous with healthy social and emotional development. Now, that's a direct quote from the Task Force of 0 to 3 in 2001. And it's very wordy, but often how I like to describe infant mental health to families is I would like to take the word mental out of there and think about relationship health. Because at the end of the day, what we know is that infants are experienced from the minute that they're born, they're experiencing the world through the relationships that they form with the adults that they are closest to or the adults that they feel safest with. So that's what infant mental health is. It's about healthy relationships, codependency, and getting that reassurance from the people that they're with that they are safe. Infant mental health all over means safety. So what we know is that experiences that are experiences that children have from the moment that they're born, if they're repeated on a day by day basis, they then lead to soft wiring in the brain, in the neural pathways, and then from when babies get from between about 2 to 3 years, those plastic kind of soft pathways start to harden. And that's what we talk about when we're thinking about neural plasticity. Basically, it means that we can shape and modulate what's happening in a baby's brain by the things that we're exposing it to. And what we do know is that we can shape it, but the brain's very clever and it thinks, well, if I've got to about this time and I'm not using these pathways, we'll get rid of it because I don't need to use that anymore. And that's why we talk about that critical window of exposing children to positive experiences. If we think about the fact that actually, if we get things right from the start, if we think that actually, this period is a time of rapid growth, but also quite a big level of vulnerability that's happening, because what we do during these early days lays the foundation for future development. If we think about it like a house, so if we get the foundations right, if we bring good contractors in, if we lay those bricks as we're supposed to, if we reinforce it and make sure it's nice and sturdy and strong, then the house that we build on top of that, or the little baby or adult that we build on top of that, actually can sustain quite a lot of difficulty in its life. It might need a few repairs from time to time, but overall, it's quite a resilient structure. If we think about a house that's built with foundations that maybe the cement isn't so great, or the person that's laying the bricks maybe has never been taught how to do it properly, then what we're probably going to find is that the house that we build on top of it, or the child that we build on top of it, is possibly going to need some propping from time to time. It might need a bit more scaffolding. It might need support and kind of repairs as it goes through its time. And that's what we think about with children. And that's what we're thinking about when we're thinking about ACEs and the impact of adversity on the growing child. We know that memories are stored often pre-verbally, and these memories and these experiences of the world are often just the way that things are done. It's those procedural memories that are actually laid down before we've even got any concept of what's happening around us. And these are the ways that we learn about what's appropriate in the environment, what is actually, what society tells us what we should do and shouldn't do. And these are the memories that then start to influence us when we become parents. These memories can often be triggered by new experiences we're growing. And this often is the thing that actually shapes us as a parent. And that's why we think about infant mental health being so important, because it's not just affecting the here and now, it's affecting what's going to happen in future as well.
So when an infant or young child babbles, gestures or cries, and an adult responds with eye contact, words or hug, this back and forth interaction is the serve and return. And serve and return is really important because it helps to build and strengthen those brain connections. And like I said before, babies can initiate right from birth that serve, and then wait until the parents return and then go back and forth. So they're very sophisticated in the way that they communicate, and it is often just a gesture. It might be just a pointing of spreading out of the fingers. It might be a smile, and we do know often we think, oh, babies don't smile from birth, they smile when they get to 6 to 8 weeks. But actually, we know through research that babies do smile from birth. We know that, you know, they communicate from birth through their cries, through their gestures, through their body posture. And we're going to learn a little bit more about that as we go along. So when we consider voice of the child, most people will be familiar with the ways in which we capture this for children who are verbal, you know, who can express themselves either through words, pictures or play. So what we need to do is work directly with the child, observe the child and seek the views of other significant people in the child's life, such as family members and teachers, and all play an important role of us in being able to understand what's going on for that child. But if you've got a verbal child, it's what they're actually saying. So how is this different for infants who are not, and particularly babies who are not speaking yet? How do we capture their voice? And basically, say what you see. Often what we see in records is that we assume to understand how the babies is presenting. So we might see in records somebody put something like, I love it when my mummy cuddles me. But what does that mean? That's not the voice of the child. The voice of the child is the because. So it's okay to put, I love it when my mummy cuddles me. Because what is that? Because how do you know that? How do you know that the child loves that? Why that, you know, we can't just assume that that's what that child is thinking. That child will be giving us some indication to come to that conclusion, and it's that's the voice of the child. How have we come to that conclusion? So babies are able to express how they're feeling and what they need, and do this through their behaviours, the physical presentation. How alert are they? How quickly are they able to soothe? Are we able to soothe them as carers, or how are they able to self-soothe, for example? What is their tone? What, you know, are they stiff? Are their arms and leg movements really out of control, or are they quite smooth? What are their colour? Do they have colour change? It's the non-verbals that are most important when we're capturing that voice of babies and infants. Because babies can't think like older children, they do experience strong feelings and bodily sensations. They're very sensitive to their environment, the people around them, the sounds, the smells and emotions in the room. So just think about the urgency a newborn baby's hunger cry. You know, when they're hungry, all they're interested in as babies is, how do I survive in this world that I'm in? Because they're so reliant in a lot of ways on somebody else meeting their needs. So they have to be able to have sophisticated communication. And one of them, yes, is crying, but there are other ways that they tell us what is going on for them, or what they're feeling, what they want, what they're needing, what they're thinking. And if you think about that urgency in a newborn hunger cry, to them, it's because they need to be that urgent in order to get what they need in order to survive. Next slide.
Okay, so if we think about communication in a little bit more depth, I'm sure that you can all remember when you're doing your nursing or whatever, people trot out this kind of, research tells us that about 55% of communication is from body language, about 38% is from the tone of voice used, but only 7% are the actual words. And I think that in itself really tells you about what we're looking for with voice of the child. We're looking at the non-verbal body language and the tone that we can pick up from the interactions that we're observing. So we know, like Jayne's already said, it's thinking about posture, it's thinking about movement, it's smooth or jerky. It's, is the baby quite fretful, or are they playful? Are they kind of willing to interact? Are they crying? Are they kind of putting their hands to their mouth? What's going on for that baby? Say what you see. That's all that we need to think about. Colour changes are a massive kind of obvious communication tool that babies can give us. Very much like when me or you are angry, we can sometimes go really red because things are happening inside our body that we can't process quick enough. Is the baby seeking connection? Are they kind of looking for people, or are they completely averting their gaze? Are they needing that little bit of a break? How are they feeling? And what's the parent's response? Because that is so important as well. Are they in kind of like a nice little mid-range contingency, or is mum and baby completely mismatched? you know, we'll often see babies pausing, we'll often see them taking a break and looking away, and hopefully a parent and carer responding appropriately. You know, are they smiling? Are they a bit more kind of blank in their expression? Are they a bit mask-like? Have they kind of their eyes become a bit duller? All of those little things can tell you a lot about how the baby's probably feeling. Um, you know, what might they be possibly trying to work out? And it'd be nice to hear, you know, that, you know, parents might be trying to work it out, putting themselves into the baby's shoes. What I'd always like to think about is if we think about, you know, a baby seeking attention, they're seeking connection, they're seeking somebody who can fix what's ever happening for them or make them feel better. Like what Jayne says, they've got an inert kind of drive to survive, and their needs need to be met by somebody else. So, you know, are they seeking that connection to get those needs met? You know, what state are they in? Are they in the kind of like the deep sleep, the active sleep, the drowsy state, or are they awake? Are they active and alert and happy to interact, or are they a bit restless? Are they a bit fussy? Are we going into full-blown crying? And how do they move through those states as well? Are we seeing those obvious engagement and disengagement cues? You know, have we got a baby who's really fixing, smiling, kind of, you know, really alert and it's nice little smooth movements? Or have we got a baby that's kind of maybe looking away a little bit and been a bit sick, or starting to cry or pull a really upset face? All of those things is such valuable information. And like I've said, how is the responder? How is the parent responding? Is it too little, too much, or just right? Are we kind of getting that happy balance, or have we got a little bit of mismatch? Are we having a bit of a rupture? And what can the parent do to repair? And how does it feel? I would always say, if you're sat in a visit, think about how you're left feeling from watching that interaction, because that can be very telling. It's the same way that when we walk into a room and we can tell that two other adults in there have been having a bit of an argument, and there's that tension in the air, or we can feel that things aren't quite feeling just right. You know, that can say how that might be for you. But I'm wondering what that might be like for the baby. If they can sense that maybe somebody's not understanding them very well, or they've got these big feelings that haven't been maybe contained very well, you know, how might that feel for them? And that can often give you a really good clue about what's going on in that moment and how the baby might be feeling and what they're trying to say. Move that on. Sorry, Jayne.
All right. So this is just some pictorial ones. And if you've done the Ready to Relate training, you'll have these pictures within your pack. So this first one where the child's out, they're not that much different in our non-verbals. It's obviously when it's clenching its hands at that age, is clearly saying, hang on a minute, I need a minute. This is all a bit too much for me. And we tend to do it, don't we, if we're bored or we want to be left alone. We tend to close in on ourselves. It's like they're trying to contain how they're feeling, and showing you, actually, wait a minute, this is getting a bit too much. The second one clearly is putting his hands to his mouth. Hands to the mouth is a comforting thing. They have two ways which they try to keep themselves calm, in that they'll fixate on an object, or they will suck on the fingers. And often we see parents putting scratch mitts on, or now they've got very sophisticated, their onesies, sleep suits have them on, but we always advise parents to take them off, because touching the face, because it helps, any touch helps produce that oxytocin, which is that happy hormone, at a time when the child may be distressed and producing cortisol. They need to be able to touch their face, and they need to be able to suck on their fingers to help release that oxytocin, which will block that cortisol and make them feel marginally better. And then you can see the one where the lady is looking at the baby's very intent, the last two, very intent on mum, smiling, giving that, in that quiet, that active alert state, really wanting to engage with parents. So you can see, I think, through these pictures that, that is clearly, some of those are clearly too much, that mum in that baby's face, where that baby's trying to sort of move away from mum, put his hands in his mouth, and the other two where they're really engaged and, that interaction is just right. And it's important that parents learn, just as babies and young infants are very sophisticated at giving pause to allow the parents to interact with that back to them. We need to teach parents to do the same, to pause and allow when they've given their serve, to pause and allow the baby, allow the young infant to think about what they want to say back and give that interaction back, not to bombard them and try and getting them to engage when they're not ready, because that'll be really upsetting for the child and really intrusive and too much and too little, not responding to the cues, not picking up on them serve and return interactions, will not help that brain to develop. As Sally said before, if we don't get it, if we give too little most of the time or too much most of the time, then that brain will prune off and won't grow to the optimum as what we want it to do. But we always stress to parents with impaired, they only actually have to get it right 30% of the time. There's no such thing as perfect parenting. We'll all have a mismatch sometimes, and that's absolutely fine as well.
I think some of the biggest things that me and Jayne do when we go out and see families for the first time is, number one, normalise, and number two, help the parent understand what it might be like for the baby in the moment. And often that can be sometimes very uncomfortable for parents because they've never been given that opportunity or allowed to think like that. But I often just reflect it back on how you feel as a person. If sometimes when you're a bit angry or you're upset, you want a really big hug. Sometimes you just want a little bit of space, or sometimes, and your baby's exactly the same, in the same way that we think about, well, you know what, if I just want somebody to leave me alone, how might I feel if they're running up to me and they're sticking their face in my face? Very overwhelmed. And often that kind of reflectiveness helps parents to kind of put themselves in their baby's position in those moments when, they can then think about how they've responded before and how they might want to do it a little bit differently, possibly next time. So when we put it all together, and as Jayne said right at the start, it's the because. We want you to say what you see, and because this is what you're seeing. So if we think about this example, so Joe was initially unsure of me as a stranger when I arrived. And I stayed by his mum's side, and he stayed by his mum's side, seeking physical touch from her. As the visit progressed, he moved away from his mum to explore the room, looking back at her, smiling, and she smiled back. He brought toys to me and smiled when we were playing together. He continued to look back at his mum, who reassured him through her voice and smiles. His posture was relaxed as the visit progressed. No changing skin colour. His initial frown switched to a brightness in his eyes. So we're not saying I feel happy because I played with the health visitor and my mum. What we're saying is that we can probably say that he was happy because we saw him doing all of these things without speaking a word. So it's saying what you see. Equally, Molly presented content with a relaxed posture. She was calm and settled in Dad's arms, offering broad smiles and with an expression of sheer delight on her face, which Dad mirrored. Limb movements were smooth, no colour change noted, coos and gurgles given in response to Dad chatting to her. Serve and return observes with Molly initiating and Dad responding. Even if a baby's asleep, Kyle slept in his mother's arms throughout the contact. He was snuggled into Mum, his body was relaxed and his face was pink. So those little kind of things kind of give you that image. So if you put yourself in the room with these people that have observed these children and parents together, how might it feel for you? Do we get a feel for what was going on in that visit? Can you imagine what it was like to spend some time with Joe and his mum, or what it might have looked like with Kyle when he slept in his mum's arms? If you can, then that is the voice of the child. Just move that forward.
And then obviously from a different perspective that's not positive, Freddie was crying at times today. His mum offered some comfort by showing her face to Freddie, leaning over the crib and using shushing sounds. However, no other physical or verbal intervention seen. Freddie's cry strengthened and he was a little sick. Freddie was grimacing. He had red and blotchy skin on his face and tears in his eyes. Freddie's arms and legs were jerky. Mum had to be prompted to offer comfort. Say what you see, again, can you picture? I think that you can clearly picture what what was going on there in that scenario. Summer was playing with a toy. She approached Mum with a shape sorter. She was fussing and banging the shapes and held one out to her mum. Mum told her to shush, and despite Summer touching her arm, Mum continued to ignore her. Summer threw herself on the floor. Her face was red and she was starting to cry and bring her legs up and down. Mum says she was attention seeking. So you can even get a picture of what, that parental interaction is not good. So you're not only seeing the voice of you're not only documenting the voice of the child, you're documenting what is the response from the parent. Is it a positive response, which is one of the things we ask to document? Is it, or is it in these say, is it a negative response? Obviously, in that second scenario with Summer, she very much wanted that connection, but Mum sees it as attention seeking. And what we do in PAIR, when parents talk about attention seeking, and we see it with professionals will say, oh, that's attention seeking behavior. It's not attention seeking behavior. We have to stop using that. What we have to start saying is it's about the seeking a connection in the only way that they know how, and that may be through doing all this. They have a need that they're trying to express, and sometimes they'll miscue that need. So they may come across as being really angry, but actually what they really are is scared. If you think about some of those families where, that child might be exposed to domestic violence, that child might be displaying some aggressive behavior, and then, or some strange behavior that's out of the norm, and they're labelled as being aggressive or whatever. And what they're actually trying to say, because they're miscuing, because somebody's not hearing them, then they're not hearing their verse. What they're actually saying is, I'm scared. I'm actually scared in this situation, but I don't know how else to express it. So James showed a lack of any facial expression during contact, was fixated on the wall light with a lot of hand-to-mouth activity. There was no turning to Mum's voice. That gives you a clear picture, doesn't it, of that voice of that child, that child is probably, his interactions are a bit too little. He's trying to self-soothe himself, and he's not. We would expect all children to turn to the voice of their parents, whether it's mum, dad. Babies from birth know who their mum is, know who their dad is, any other family member within that house, that because they've started to hear when they were in the womb at 20 weeks. So straight away they know their family members, and they should be looking to their family to meet their needs to survive. If they're not doing that, then that means that something is wrong. Something they've learned that whatever they do, their needs are not going to be met. So they've switched off. So what is going on? Is it that mum's depressed and she's not met that needs even 30% of the time? What is going on in that family? And if you're at that stage, I would be for someone that you would be feeling uncomfortable, wouldn't you, within those visits?
Yeah.
So hopefully that makes sense around, and you might put, James wasn't feeling happy within that family, within that household, or Summer, wasn't feeling listened to, and then the because, and that will be the because, and it's the because, that's the important. It's the because that is the voice of the child,
and it's that kind of likeliness, isn't it? It is likely that someone was feeling quite frightened, or that someone was feeling quite ignored, or how they might have been feeling in that moment because of what we're seeing, like Jayne said.
Yeah.
Oops, I'll just move that. So I think the majority of people that are on today is all from 0 to 19. And if you are kind of within our 0 to 19 service, referrals are all on our system 1, and you can see the PAIR referral. All you need to do then is complete it with or without contacting me or Jayne for a consultation first. Please feel free if you do want some advice. And then all you need to do is save it in the record and task us that there's a new referral for a family in the PMIH inbox. If you are part of 0 to 19, you don't need to refer, you don't need to email as well, because we've obviously already got access to that System 1 record where the referral is stored. If you are external to 0 to 19 team, please call me and Jayne for a consultation if you feel it's needed. Complete the electronic referral, and then email it to the hdft.pairs@nhs.net inbox. Then what we will do, we'll contact you straight away if we need a bit more information, but we meet still on a week-by-week basis to triage referrals, look at them and discuss them and start a care plan. Currently, we've probably got a waiting time from referral to assessment of about 4 weeks, but we do triage, especially the younger children or cases that come through that we feel really need urgent assessment as soon as possible.
Emma, you've got a question?
Sorry, I'm just wondering, where I'm external, where would we download the form from exactly?
Where do you work, Emma?
I'm an education welfare officer, but I work across 2 trusts, so obviously go into lots of houses, work with lots of different parents, might go into siblings, so it's those sort of things.
Yeah, so have you dropped your email into the inbox?
I haven't, no, I can do.
Drop it in and I can email you afterwards.
Thank you very much.
And then if you want to share far and wide with your colleagues, that's absolutely fine as well.
What I would say is, if they've got social work involvement, what we're asking for at the moment is for us to have a social work consultation. That's not to say that you can't put the PAIR referral in, but what we would say is that we will. So if you're working with the social worker and it's been what we're finding is that some of the chairs are putting it on the plan without ever having a conversation with us, or we need to check is that the parents have got the ability to have, that they've got reflective functioning, so they've got the ability to be able to think about what it's like for the child, and therefore what we're asking is if they've got a social worker involved, so if they're on a child protection plan or in particularly or in public law outline, what we're asking is that the social worker has a consultation with us to discuss that referral first before we say yes, we're going to work with them, rather than forcing it upon parents who don't want to do it. But also it might not be appropriate if they've not got reflective functioning. That's not to say we won't go out and do an assessment ourselves, an initial assessment ourselves if need be. It's just that we need to make sure that it's the right time for those parents to do the work with us, and that we're not, and that ethically we're not causing any harm both to the parent or the child, because of it may be that they've entered into PLO and ultimately that baby is going to be removed. Well, it wouldn't be kind to the parent to be doing the work at that point. So yeah, that's what we're asking at the moment, if that's okay. But if in doubt, you can ring us, and if all you to do to ring us is obviously ring the 0-90 Wakefield 0-19 number, which is for help, because we sit within health visiting, and just ask admin to tell you who's on duty that day. They'll give you either myself, Sally, or Lynn Mossels, our staff nurse. There's a phone number for you to ring us to direct. There are certain times where you should get hold of us, definitely, and that's between 9 and 10. And 3 and 4, Monday to Friday. But obviously, if for whatever reason we're in training, so for example on Friday I'm delivering training and Sally's on leave. So if you just leave me a message, leave us a message, we will get back to you as soon as, and it is usually that day. One of us, whoever's on duty, will get back to you that day, and we can have a consultation around it as well, if you're wondering. But if in doubt, just send a referral. Just send a referral into us.
So we've got just put a few resources on here now. So the Institute for Health Visiting have got a really lovely research, I think it's about a 4-page document called Baby Watching, and it goes through all the stuff that me and Jayne have talked about. So the engagement cues, the disengagement cues, the too little, too much, just right. It talks about baby states, and it gives some kind of little pointers to talk and frame your conversations with around with parents about getting them to understand where the baby is and what it's like for the baby, and start to put themselves in the baby's shoes. We've got our Children's Health app, our Growing Healthy app. There's a section on there called Baby Bonding, And that is all about infant mental health. It's all about what we do in PAIR teams, some of the interventions that we do, but it's also got about 3 or 4 different sections about all the stuff that me and Jayne have spoken about. So that serve and return, the importance of contingency and kind of mirroring and, that back and forth. There's also some really lovely videos on there that shows babies in different states, what too little, too much, just right looks like. So they're all there as well. And the getting to know your baby videos are all on YouTube as well that you can use freely. There's also the Ready to Relate training that myself and Jayne deliver, but Ready to Relate Bradford have also got their full resource online that you can talk with parents about and signpost them to and maybe watch some videos with during visits. And it's all about infant mental health and the importance of early relationships. We've also got the Anna Freud Centre, who is, I would probably say, one of the most, one of our biggest kind of go-to for all things to do with infant mental health. So me and Jayne are Anna Freud trained as reflective supervisors, and they really bring all of the research into infant mental health in the UK and bring the voice of the child through.
I would add on to that the Brazelton Institute, UK. The Brazelton Institute have done a lot of research around on neonates, so around communication for children, starting with children that were born early, right up to obviously older children. And they've produced some lovely leaflets for parents around all the things that we're talking about today, about how babies communicate from birth, what to look for in that baby communication, how to support that baby communication, and really simple leaflets that you can just print off. For yourself, Emma, and anybody that's not within Wakefield 0 to 19, if you've not done the Ready to Relate infant mental health training, which is a full day, gives you a resource, a really good resource, cards, the ones obviously we've shown you some examples of, but it's a real robust, really researched resource to use with parents. From 0 to 5, but also that training incorporates other infant mental health training that we've done, and helps you to understand why older children might present how they do and how you can do things different with those children. So anybody that works with children, that training is offered. It's a 1-day training. To access it, there's only one date at the moment, and that's in November. If you just go onto the Wakefield Safeguarding Children's Partnership board, go onto training, put ready in, and it'll bring it up, Ready to Relate, and you can just book a place. It is face-to-face. Usually me and Sally deliver that training together, or one of us delivers it. Please, it's free for you. The resource is free. So please, if you want to book on that, please do if you haven't already done it.
I'm a great lover of podcasts, and there's lots of brilliant podcasts out there all about voice of the child. I would also highly recommend, if you really want to get into that kind of reflective voice of the child capacity, there's a really great book that was recommended to us by our parent infant psychotherapist, and it's called The Diary of a Baby. You can pick one up now on, kind of Amazon and stuff as a used copy for a couple of quid, and it's by Dr. Daniel Stern, and it takes you through the first year of a baby's life and what they're experiencing and the world through their eyes and how it might feel for them, and it intertwines it with a lot of theory around infant mental health, but also the anatomy and physiology about what's going on for that baby in that moment as well. It's a really wonderful resource. If you're in 0 to 19, we've actually got a copy in the Ashgrove office, so if you do want to borrow it, by all means, please do. Just drop me an email just to let us know. But yeah.
And there are simple ways you can sort of, the other way, the resources there, we put it on, called the Brazelton stuff. What I would say is to even just documenting that babies initiating, serve mum and parents, waiting and doing that return. You'll see that if you look at our examples of how we document, you'll see that a lot in there. But also that to assess parental reflective function, often what happens for parents is they get very stuck about how they feel. So what we tend to do is say, you're feeling like this. I wonder what that feels like for whatever your baby's called, and it helps them to think, what do you think, and see if they can think about what it feels like for that child. Helps us to know, have they got capacity to be able to put themselves in that child's shoes, when, you know, and gets them to think about that baby as a human, because often we get stuck in this, that babies, all they do is poo, wee, cry, drink, sleep, and that's it. But actually, they're very, like I said right at the beginning, they're very sophisticated communicators right from birth. So it's to get them to think about, go beyond that, and start to think about how sophisticated these babies are at communicating, and seeing them as somebody that the relationship is reciprocal. It's a two-way relationship, not just, you know, the parents. It is a two-way relationship. So we've come to the end of that. Has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask about it, what we've shared today, or any observations? Or
found it useful how you mentioned about voice the child, how to write it. That's been good.
Yeah, I know I know particularly, I can say this for 0 to 19, it's been very difficult, because previously when we've been in other trusts, we've been trained by psychotherapists, and if you look at some of our parent infant psychotherapist, the way that she would document exactly how you were taught to at Bradford in my bed, but that's because she's a psychotherapist who's had 7 years of quite significant training to be able to back that up if you're in court. We haven't. And the signs of safety, when we did the signs of safety with regards to safeguarding, we used to write like that, didn't we? Try to think about what the impact is on that child. But actually now we need to shift away from that, because we know that the baby has a voice, and the voice is how they're presenting the because it's not, you know, we can't make assumptions, because if you were to stand in court, they'd say, well, how do you know that? Where's your, you know, so it's the,
I mean,
this
the
is
only
how we
caveat
know
I'd
that.
say is, obviously, you know, specialist teams like FMP, you work on a specific program and protocol in terms of how you document, and you get your specialist supervision as well, and that's understandable. We're just talking about your typical kind of your universal visits, or when you're going out and doing your UPP, and you know, your universal visits. Any more questions?
That FMP do write in the first person, but that's because you've done different training. So for you, Anna, it'll be different because you've done different training, and that's what we're saying for people. Most people haven't done that sort of psychological training, and even though we have, we wouldn't write in that way. We would write in what we see what we, to give that you know, to normalize that actually children do have a voice. They're just, you know, it's very non-verbal, a lot of it, and capturing that in that way.
Any more questions, anybody?
Thank you. I found it quite interesting. Thank you.
Excellent. If anybody has got anything that they want to add or share, if you can bob your email addresses in the chat box, I can send evaluations out. We're always wanting kind of ideas about how we can shape these sessions to kind of meet what you want. So they're going to be running every Monday, what I'm talking about. We're going to be running the first Tuesday of every week, of every month. Thank you, Jayne. I don't know, I'm ready for a holiday. First Tuesday of every month, 12 while 1. All the dates are on the Wakefield Safeguarding Children's Board partnership, and the session has been recorded. So once we've got it, it'll be uploaded and you can watch that at your leisure as well. The next one that we're doing is we've got some people from GASP and also hopefully Dad Matters come in. It's about the importance of engaging men and men's mental health. So yeah, please, hopefully we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody.
And yeah, obviously, wait a minute. Obviously, if there is anything that you want to know more of, just email us and we can do it specific to what you want to, you know, this is your learning. So whatever if there's anything you specifically want us to cover, then just let us know.
Will we get a copy of the PowerPoint?
I can, yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah, I can share that out, definitely. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you.
Got all the numbers and stuff on there, yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll send it out to everybody. I'll send it out with a evaluation and PowerPoint to everybody as well. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See you later.